Okay, what do you understand by a program? Now, as we know that computers are dumb machines. Okay, they don't understand anything. Whatever we will feed them, they will work on them. Okay, they are simply meant to work on the data they are fed. Okay, they do not understand anything on their own. And how do we feed data to computers? In the form of instructions or commands. Yes, so instructions, when we write a set of instructions or commands and instruct a computer to perform some task or to solve any problem, okay, we call those sets a program. Okay, so we cannot simply give one instruction. Fine, there will be a series of instructions given to a computer to perform some task. Okay, we will make the computer, we users will make the computers perform some task on behalf of us. Say we want to perform some addition, we want to perform some multiplication, or say we simply want to store something in our machines, or we would like to write write something, fetch something which is stored in our memory element. So likewise, whenever we are trying to perform any task, whenever we want the computer to perform a task for us, the user will have to instruct the computer to perform that, and accordingly we provide them with a set of instructions or commands, which togetherly is known as a program. Fine. Now the thing is, programs, you know there are ways of writing programs. Okay, programs are always written using programming languages. Okay, just as if two entities are to communicate, hmm, just as I am communicating with you all. Okay, so what happens is, when I'm trying to communicate with you, we both parties must agree upon a language, okay, that we both can read and write. That is, that we both can speak, understand, and you know write. Do you understand what I'm saying? So likewise, since users will be instructing the computers, and computers are no human beings. They are not human beings like us. Okay, they do not understand anything. So the only language that they would understand is the binary language. Anyways, we will come to that a bit later, since we will be discussing on the types of programming languages, you know, uh, here. So what I wanted to say is, when two parties are communicating, it is very important for them to communicate using a medium. Okay, and that medium is a language. So similarly, whenever we users want to communicate with computers, we also have to use some languages using which we will, you know, try to communicate with them. And how do we communicate? By use of programs. Okay, we will write programs using certain languages. Okay, and then the computer will take the it will start processing that program written in whichever language, and it will do its own work, and finally we will get the desired output. Yes, so when we are talking about programming languages, so there have been many languages, okay, so far. So broadly, you can think programming languages to be of two types. One is low level and the other is high level. So what are low level languages? Well, low level languages are those which are machine dependent. Okay, these are languages that the machine understands. Okay, okay. So talking about low level languages, again, low level languages are of two types: machine language, which is also known as the first generation language, and then we have the assembly language, which is the second generation language. So both these languages together, are low level languages, and they are machine dependent languages. Now we shall, try to go through each one by one, starting with machine language. Now you see, machine language is that language which is understood by computers. Okay, you have, all these. I think from the last semester you have done all these. So I'll just speak briefly on it. So machine languages are those languages which are dependent on the machine. So these are those languages which the computer will understand. Now, why does a computer understand only machine language? You see, computer is an electronic device that we all know. Yes, and they operate on electrical signals. Yes. else. So when you interpret this in terms of numbers, we have 0 and 1. Okay, we denote the number used to denote an off state or low state is 0, and to denote high state or on state we have 1. Okay, so these are the only two states, or these are the only two numbers that a computer understands. Fine. So the language that we use, um, the computer understands, the language that the computer understands is a machine language, which is also called binary language. Why binary language? Because bi means 2. Okay, since there are only 2 digits that the computer understands, so we also call machine language to be a binary language. Okay, so any instruction that you will be giving to the first generation language computers, okay, first generation computers, any information you give, any program you do, everything must be written in binary language. It is in series of ones and zeros. Okay. Now the drawbacks of machine language is that it is very difficult to read, write, understand, and maintain. Yes, because see, if I am talking to you using a language which is understood by you, yes, English is a very easy language. We all understand English. We can read it. We can, speak it. Yes, but if I happen to talk to you in zeros and ones, okay, if I happen to talk to you in zeros and ones, firstly, it will be 2 times. Firstly, it is not visible at all. Okay, it is not visible at all. And secondly, it will be consuming too much time for you all to translate. Okay, to understand what actually man has said through zeros and ones. So you will have to sit down with a pen and a paper. You have to convert the sequence of zeros and ones to a language that you understand. And only then you will come to know that, okay, ma'am wanted to say this. Okay, so as you can see, it is very difficult, to maintain such languages, to work with such languages. Okay, so to remove some of the disadvantages of machine languages, that is the assembly language. Now, assembly language is also known as the second generation language. Okay, so here in assembly language, what we do is we write instructions using mnemonics. Mnemonics are nothing but some symbolic notations. Okay, there we use some symbols instead of zeros and ones. Okay, since machine language was purely zeros and ones, anything you write, anything you read, everything is a sequence of zeros and ones. So to make things bit easier, okay, for users, the second generation language, that is the assembly language, started using mnemonics. Mnemonics are some symbolic representation of instructions. Okay, so here the symbolic instruction language is called the assembly language. Now, in order to execute this instruction, okay, the mnemonics that has been written needs to be first converted to binaries, because as I said, computers understand only the binary language or the machine language. Okay, so assembly language is one step ahead. Okay, so to be able to for the computer to be able to understand or process an assembly language, uh, you know okay. So for a computer to be able to understand, the assembly language, first we need a software which will help the which will help convert the assembly language to binary language, and that software is known as an assembler. Okay, so it is one kind of a translator which will translate the program written in assembly language. Okay, it will translate all the symbols, all the mnemonics, okay, all the codes written in we write any source program using, whenever we write any program using mnemonics, okay, in assembly language, it is called the source program. Even when we write any program, using any language, the program that we first design is called the source program, okay. And once, it is compiled, the output that we get after compilation, okay, that is known as the object program. So here, in case of assembly language, the initial program that you will write using the assembly language will be your source program, and after, translation by the assembler, the final output that you get, okay, the translated output that you get will be your object program. Next, we come to the high level languages. Okay, so what are high level languages? So we have already seen how, just wait for a minute. Okay, uh, am I, am I audible? Am I audible to you all, or am I just blabbering?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, okay, fine. Thank God. Thankfully, I'm audible. Okay, so next, we talk about the high-level languages. So since low-level languages are machine dependent, high-level languages are not machine dependent. Okay, and also that in low-level languages we had, you know, we had to deal with many disadvantages, like, you know, say it was tough to understand, okay, be it machine language or be it assembly language, because in assembly language we use some symbolic notation, so it is also not much easier to understand assembly language, okay, although it is, it was designed to improve some of the disadvantages of machine language, but however assembly language is also not easier to use, okay, so it was also easy to debug, okay, to look for errors, to maintain. It was also non-portable. It was completely machine dependent. And it always, if we used assembly language, it always needed assemblers for translation. Okay, so for all these, drawbacks, these languages, are not commonly used these days. Okay, so users don't really use these languages now. So we have switched to high-level languages. So what are high-level languages actually? You see, high level language is actually any language which is, a very much programmer friendly, okay, so here instructions are written using the English language, okay, with their symbols and digits, fine, that is why these languages are known as the high level languages. Now, um, it is programmer friendly, then also they are very much easier to understand, they are easier to maintain, to debug, it is portable, it can be run on any platform, okay, and but however we need compilers or interpreters for translation. Okay, because as we know that computers, ultimately we are dealing with computers, ultimately we are programming the computer, so computers do not understand high level languages. So at the end we need, you know, some means of translation. So here we will be using compilers or interpreters for the same. Okay, but however high level languages have brought about much improvement in programming languages. Now, discussing about the high-level languages, we have, you know, basically three languages so far: the third generation language, the fourth generation, and the fifth generation. Okay, so the third generation is simply the high-level language, which I said. Okay, so here, you know, as I said, you know, all languages are written using English symbols and digits. And talking about the commonly used high-level languages, we have Fortran, Basic, COBOL, Pascal, Prolog, okay, C, etc. Now, you know, the complete instruction set, okay, written in this language is called the source program. So as I said, whenever you are using any language, the program you write, okay, is always your source program. So be it, you know, a low-level language or a high-level language, any program you write will be your source program, and after translation it becomes your object program. Now, talking about the 4GL, okay, which is also referred to as the, you know, fourth generation language. So basically, fourth generation language is very much closer to the human language, okay, than the third generation languages. And here in fourth generation languages, we make use of software packages, okay, for specific applications. So you will have some packages available for your software applications. You simply need to write commands, okay, to you know, use those packages. You know, so, sorry, you simply have to write commands for those packages which will, you know, to program that will already be available in those packages in your program. So directly you can make use of them. You don't have to, you know, write every definition. You can directly readily make use of the packages available in your applications. Okay, and talking about 4GL, we have databases, okay, we have MySQL, we have Oracle, then we have your MS Office. All these are fourth generation languages. And talking about the fifth generation language, these are also known as the artificial intelligence language or the natural language, which is very much the human language that we speak. Okay, so all these are used in you know, natural language processing, that we do artificial intelligence broadly. Okay, in robotics. So all these are 5th generation languages. Now, you know, talking about high-level languages. So see, we have already discussed the 3 types of high-level languages, but based on the design paradigm, okay, based on design paradigm, they can be broadly categorized again into many types. Okay, I have simply mentioned 3 types. One is the procedural programming language, next is object-oriented, and the third is problem-oriented language, and there are many more. Okay, so first we will simply look at the procedural programming languages, since you have only you know, gone through procedural programming language. So we will simply do a brush up of the procedural programming language here. So what is a procedural programming language? What do you understand by procedures? Procedures are nothing but some routines. It can be routines, it can be subroutines, it can be functions, whatever you call. Okay. So here, let us go to the first point. Procedural programming language is also called POP, which is procedural oriented programming. So here, you know, in procedural programming, our main focus is always on the procedures, always on how to perform a task. Okay, we will simply focus on the functions. Whenever we are given a problem, we will try to find out how are we to solve that program. Okay, so here the emphasis is basically on doing things. How are we supposed to solve a problem? How are we going to design a logic for that particular problem solving? Okay, so this Procedural programming language follows top-down approach. So you must also have probably heard about top-down approach. So what is top-down approach? So given any problem, okay, we will consider it as a complex problem. So whenever we are given any problem, we consider it to be a complex problem, okay, because we don't know how to solve it. We will take the problem all together, okay. We will take the problem all together, and then we will try to move downwards. Okay, we will try to move downwards. So that is why the name top down. So we will first, start from the the very problem that has been given to us. Okay, considering it to be a complex one. Then we will try to further break down the given problem into further sub problems. Okay, so we will first, in the first step, we will try to break down the problem that has been given to us. Okay, then we come a level downwards. Then we will try to see if those problems that, if those sub problems, sub modules or sub routines that we have obtained after breaking the complex problem can now be maintained or understood. Even if it is still, complex, even if it cannot be understood easily or it cannot be maintained or programmed easily, what we will do is we will again go for, breaking process. We will again break down those subroutines, okay, to further to the next level, okay, so that we get a fairly easier problem as compared to the problems we obtained in the previous level. So likewise we continue. So as you can see, I think you can easily make out from the diagram that initially given the complex problem, at every step we will try to break down the given problem into sub problems so that it can be easily understood for us. Okay, because at the end of the day we have to program that particular problem. We have to design a logic for that problem that has been given to us. And to design a logic, it is very important that we understand the basic need, what we have to do with that problem, what are we supposed to do or how are we supposed to do. So for that reason, we would try to go on breaking down the problem, and we will get new levels every time we break them down. And finally we will reach a level, we will finally reach a level where we will find all the subroutines to be very much easier to understand and to code as compared to the previous level subroutines. Okay, so likewise after we reach a level where we are, where we have all the problems which are very much easier now for us to maintain, okay, which are very much easier for us to handle, to maintain, very easy to understand, and convert it into codes. Until then, we will go on repeating the process. So this approach is known as the top-down approach. So procedural programming language follows the top-down approach. Now, after you get the problems which you can easily manage, now we go for designing algorithms. So you have heard about algorithms and flowcharts. So what is an algorithm? It is nothing but a well-defined sequence, okay, a well-defined sequence.